All right, happy Monday. Welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. We begin tonight with some breaking news from the Supreme Court. The court clearing the way for President Trump's executive order that will change mail-in voting ahead for the midterms. The administration filing an emergency application seeking to enforce the order, which creates lists of eligible voters in each state. Novel concept, I know. And instructs the U.S. Postal Service to deliver mail-in ballots only to verified voters. Wow. Plus, request denied. And Texas judge has rejected a convicted murderer, Kamala Anthony's request for a new trial, keeping his 35-year murder sentence intact for the fatal stabbing of the 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at that high school track meet. Now, his legal team says this fight is far from over as the appeal goes on. And Saturday marked 1 year since Irina Zaruska was brutally murdered on a North Carolina light rail by a black man with a lengthy criminal history. Now her family is suing the city of Charlotte and its private transit security contractor, alleging systemic failures left the city's light rail dangerously vulnerable. But first, economic bombs over Iran and what Trump can do to ease pain at the pump now. Let's do this. Scott Bessent today putting the nail in the coffin for the Iranian regime with some of the most stringent economic restrictions and sanctions on Iran.
Today, in that same spirit, we are launching an economic onslaught against Iran's financial connections around the globe.
I realize most people hear like sanctions and like, oh, okay, whatever. It's not that big a deal. This actually is a big deal beyond anything we've done before. This will be, not could, will be the economic end of the ability for the Iranian regime to exist. There is no ability to exist with this level of sanctions. And here's why.
Let me be clear. Any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the U.S. dollar system.
Oh. Kind of a big deal. The U.S. dollar is the global currency. This is why Trump went after the Panama Canal, why he went into Venezuela, and why he's in Iran now, to ensure we stay the global currency. And so we can continue to print money. If you want to trade globally, you're going to have to be able to use the U.S. dollar. This puts Iran on a financial island. This is not worth it for other countries to roll the dice on that. The bulk of their revenue comes from exporting oil, of which they've not been able to do a lot of for quite some time now. And while we can physically stop all their ships from leaving, these sanctions stop people from buying what little they were selling that was still getting through.
We want to make clear here today that no one is above the reach of U.S. sanctions, that if they facilitate transactions and are part of the ecosystem that turns Iranian oil into money, into repression, they will be targeted.
If Iran can't make money, they can't pay their troops, they can't fund their infrastructure, they can't do anything, and eventually their country is just going to collapse. Even these diehard, mullah zealots can't survive that. But the next thing on the agenda is less about crude oil flowing out of Iran, but more about refining what we are producing here in America, specifically diesel fuel. We told you about this a few months ago. Crude oil out of the ground is basically useless. This is where they breaks down. Single 42-gallon barrel to market products. You have 40% of it goes to gasoline, okay? That's what you put in your car. 30% of it is diesel or heating oil, which is the same thing, just without road taxes. Yes, diesel is in fact the byproduct of a lower quality part of producing gasoline. But now there's an additional dynamic happening. You know what the diesel crack spread is? All right. Financial terms, but stay with me here because this is very important to understanding not only why diesel prices are so high right now, but also how to fix it. The diesel crack spread, or crack price, whatever you want to call it, is basically the profit refiners make by turning a barrel of crude into diesel fuel. Right now, in late August 2026, this spread has jumped to a record level of around $100 a barrel in the U.S. for the cost of diesel, while crude oil is sitting around $85 a barrel. Keep in mind, before this conflict, the crack spread on a barrel of diesel was between $20 and $40. You can see it right there. That black line is the line where we started really bombing Iran, immediately jumped up. But the conflict with Iran is not actually the main problem here, believe it or not. It just happened to time out perfectly. It's like this perfect storm of stuff that's going on. All right, the main problem, listen to this very carefully. The main problem of the global diesel shortage, not caused by Iran. It's actually caused by Ukraine attacking Russian refineries. These attacks are being carried out, mind you, with the backing and financial support of mostly Democrats who've been funding and providing weapons to Ukraine for the last 5 years. Some of those are long-range weapons that they're now using. The money that is being used to attack the facilities that refined about 10% of the global diesel supply, I mean, awesome, absolute awesome job here, Democrats. Even in the minority, you have figured out a way to cost Americans more for their fuel. Now, stack that on the disruptions in shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, which is not a zero factor, but it's not the main factor. We have unusually low stockpiles right now, too, and the historically low Strategic Petroleum Reserve. It's a tinderbox. Also, I'd like to point out, as liberals whine about Trump currently drawing from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, this is literally what it's for. Joe Biden drained it during a midterm election for political reasons, and no Democrat said a word about that. That Strategic Petroleum Reserve was not for politics. It was built for supply disruptions during global conflict, which is now. I'd also like to note that Trump filled it up prior to this, something Joe Biden didn't do. So what do we all do about this? The short answer is refineries. But you can't just like flip a switch and start refining fuel. You have to build these things. We don't refine enough oil in America to sustain ourselves. We pump more out of the ground than any other nation, 2x to Saudi Arabia. But we cannot turn it into actual fuel for your car or truck fast enough. That's why we have to import some. That's why we export our crude. But here's what we can do starting yesterday. We didn't win World War II because we fought the Axis powers on the battlefield alone. We mostly won World War II because we outproduced everyone else. In the space of barely over 5 years, America produced 325,000 planes, 100,000 in just 1 year. What does Boeing crank out at? Maybe a few hundred? We built over 100,000 tanks, 2.4 million trucks, 124,000 ships. We're talking boats, 100,000 boats, including aircraft carriers. We built 350 destroyers in 4 years, over 200 submarines, 13 million rifles. We built 41 billion rounds of ammunition and tens of thousands of artillery pieces in 4 years. This level of manufacturing was brought on by need. And brother, we need diesel or it's about to get bad. We Americans, this is what happened then. We got together, we dropped our ideological BS, we put our jobs on the side, and we worked towards the war effort. We need that spirit now for domestic refinery production. Right now, it takes 5 to 7 years, and that's if you can get cleared by the environmental groups to build a refinery here in America. If we built at that pace during World War II, we'd all be speaking German right now. This is Trump's thing, building stuff. Get all the environmental groups the hell out of the way. If the unions want to do this on your terms with timelines, great, they can be involved. Otherwise, privatize that thing. Do it. This has been an issue in America for 50 years, and we've just been kicking the can down the road. We haven't built a diesel refinery in probably close to 50 years here. But we sure have closed a bunch down in the last 50 years, and we've done nothing to replace that. This is a matter of national security. There's almost an unlimited amount of money worth paying to have these things built. And if you pushed, you could get this done in a year, folks. I think we have like $1 trillion going to the Pentagon every year. They asked for $1.5 trillion next year. $100 billion of that could change the global supply of diesel and make us entirely independent of any other nation. Seems like a good thing considering we spend $7 trillion a year on other junk. Half of it's going to fraud in Somalia. If we did this like any other major investment the government has made in the history of America, like the railroad, the power grid, the highway system, if we invested in refineries like we have in previous national emergencies too and nationwide connection projects, the price of shipping and therefore your goods would go down dramatically. You would pay probably $1 or $2 at the pump, not $4 or $5. Every other country in the world would be begging us, including places like Saudi Arabia, for our access to our production facilities because we'd be awesome. Every president has kicked this can down the road, as I said. It is a matter of national security, and this would solve absolutely everything. White House senior counselor for trade and manufacturing, author of Why Fauci Must Rot in Prison, Peter Navarro. Sir, look, I want to get to Canada in a sec, but this refinery thing could make almost every other foreign entity that hates us null and void.
Carl, I've been fighting this refinery fight for years, going back to the first term of the Trump administration. It's ironic, where you have the most drivers and the most miles driven, California. Can you get a refinery there? No. Can you get a pipeline there? No. There's just a disconnect between people's understanding on the left side of the political spectrum what it takes to have a strong nation and what they support. So you're really right to focus on this. I remember back in the first term, one of my passions that President Trump ordered me to do was getting our shipyards back in shape. And when he sent me to the Philly shipyard, we had less than 100 workers there. And I was able, working across the interagency, as they say, to get it back in shape. And it's one of the strongest shipyards now we have in the entire country. But right across the way, Carl, there was a refinery that we could have been having, we could have been using, and it was just sitting there. And so that's where we're at. And pipelines and refineries, the left blocks, and then they bitch about expensive gasoline at the pump and try to use that as an election issue.
And that's after, by the way,
the job of you and I and others to connect those dots so people understand why gas prices are high. It's all about the refineries and pipelines we're not getting done.
They complain
about it. And there
is
a segue in there, because one of the things we're trying to do with that Canadian deal is to get the Keystone Pipeline finished.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
So, there's an important pipeline that goes across that border, and that fell apart when Carney, the prime minister, pulled his latest Trump derangement syndrome tantrum.
Yeah, Peter, and I was going to go into that, which is, this is something that they had protesters up there protesting it for environmental reasons that left behind 40 dumpsters worth of trash because they don't actually care about the environment. But now, Vice President J.D. Vance is actually holding nothing back. He just destroyed Canada today. Watch this, sir.
Canada allows itself to be used as a backdoor for Chinese goods. They treat Chinese goods more fairly than they do the goods that come from the people of Maine. Stop taking advantage of America. It's over. We expect fairness in our trade policy.
When I heard that, I was shocked. I actually went and looked it up from 5 different sources. He's 100% right. That drove me insane.
Nobody, Carl, in the White House has more experience with the trade negotiators of Canada. Bet you didn't know that. But it goes back to 2016, like the day after the election of Donald John Trump. Wilbur Ross, who would be the Commerce Secretary, and myself began negotiations on the U.S., what would become the USMCA. And I can tell you, as much as I love Canada, as much as I love the Canadian people, as nice as the Canadian people are, their trade negotiators are arrogant, backstabbing people. They're just besides the Chinese and the Canadians are the hardest ones to deal with. They're the only two countries retaliating against us. But let me explain the politics of this, because people are scratching their heads. It starts with the fact that Canada cheats us. They cheat us on dairy. They won't let us sell our alcoholic beverages there. Lumber's a mess.
Yeah.
And we gave them a really good deal. That deal was so good that it kind of made me a little bit nervous, because it was a good deal. It was a fair deal. Jameson Greer negotiated it well, but it was right up to the edge where you want to be about being as fair to your trading partner as you possibly can. And that Carney, he said, he went off on his Trump derangement thing, and here's the rule here. There's a rule here. The higher Carney goes in his polling in politics, appealing to this Trump derangement syndrome, the lower their economy is going to fall. That's the disconnect. And I would say this, and I've been saying this directly to the Canadian people. Please understand, when you reward Carney every time he trashes Donald Trump, you're basically shooting yourself not in the foot but in the head.
Yeah.
In terms of your economy.
Oh, no, 100%.
And you got to stop that because it's just wrong. And if you just look at what they do, and here's something. I'm the only guy who can tell you this, okay? Because I go back. The problem stems from when we originally negotiated NAFTA. I wasn't any around, but the people who negotiated that deal, the Canadians, were playing chess. We were playing checkers. They outsmarted us, and from that day on, they've been arrogant, and they thought they could beat us every time they sat down with us. And they're overplaying their hand, and this is not a good thing for the hemisphere. No. And push has got to come to shove. But I'm telling you, Canada, you're not getting as good a deal as you just got. Okay,
well,
you blew it. And something's got to give here.
Especially if Alberta leaves. I mean, they are totally screwed. They can join America, though. Peter Navarro, my man, pleasure as always.
And don't forget Fauci. He must rot in prison. Get the book on Amazon, friends. This one's going to be a blockbuster.
I will read anything about throwing Fauci in jail, so that's a great book for me to get as soon as I get done with the show. All right, Peter Navarro, we appreciate it, sir. All right, cool. Good to know he hates Fauci as much as I do. Coming up, the Senate Republicans releasing a memo with concerns about supporting these construction areas of mega data centers in rural countryside areas. What does this mean for the midterms? Ooh, well, you'll have mine and the Senate committee's thoughts on this. But first, California Governor Gavin Newsom signing away freedom of speech in his state as he tries to silence journalists and protect the fraudsters with the Stop Nick Shirley Act. Not shady at all. The man himself, independent journalist Nick Shirley, going to join me next.
Are you throwing away money on your car insurance?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Try Insurify. We help you compare quotes and save half on your car insurance.
I like it when things are convenient and save me lots of money.
Go to Insurify.com and save up to $1,000 a year on your car insurance.
Jordan's a new homeowner, and she thought she had a drainage problem.
There's water everywhere.
Turns out it was clogged gutters. It pools near your foundation and can seep into your home. But Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free. Call or click today.
It's me, Ricky. You grew up with me. I am using Fatty 15 to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. I urge you to try Fatty 15.
This is our time, you know? His favorite route is the long way around. Now we can take it again. I'm not sure who loves this freedom more, him or me.
Being out here alone is my happy place. Nature can have its threats, but I'm prepared.
I'm not trying to fight wildlife. I just don't want one bad encounter deciding everything.
Carry confidence wherever you go with Byrna. And now it's the biggest sale ever at Byrna.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dry premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Apparently, the First Amendment is no longer a thing in California. The California State Assembly passed the, quote, Stop Nick Shirley Act on Tuesday with a 57-19 vote. It wasn't even close. The Governor Gavin Newsom wasted no time signing into law. The bill outlaws the sharing of photos or personal data of, quote, immigrant service providers if done as, quote, harassment, which is defined by the people doing the fraud, by the way, and expands the state's Safe at Home program. Right. Okay. So California wants to protect immigrants, especially immigrants who are committing fraud with our tax dollars, and then stop Americans and investigative journalism, you know, like under the First Amendment, from uncovering it. Got it. The man himself, independent journalist Nick Shirley, who's hosting a rally to stop this bill in Sacramento on Wednesday. Nick, I'll get to the rally in a sec. This is insane that they named it after you.
Well, it is wild. The official title is AB 2624. And then when people started reading it, they're like, oh my gosh. The assemblymen were like, oh my gosh, this is the Stop Nick Shirley Act, because this would prohibit the exact form of journalism that Nick Shirley does. And so the Attorney General's wife is the one who created this bill, which is insane.
Yeah, no, it is really. And I was just, I was going through my little Constitution app here, and it says, Congress shall make no law, and then it goes on to talk about the free exercise of religion, but also journalism, like the press. You're sitting here being, no, you can't report on things that the government is doing. And that's the fundamental purpose of the First Amendment, is to follow along what government is doing to expose them, to make them accountable to the people.
Exactly. I mean, literally in the bill, it says that you cannot publicly post on the internet if you were to go out and film one of these locations. And there's actually no need for this bill. There's already laws put in place for people that are being harassed or doxxed. What these people are saying now is that, hey, if you go out and you speculate that there's fraud going on inside of this hospice or inside of this Leering Center, and you go out and you post it, but they give you a written demand saying, hey, you cannot post this video, it then becomes illegal. You'll receive a $4,000 fine, and you have to pay for the attorney fees of the people that are suing you.
Golly, this sounds so stupid. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. Well, I mean, I'm sure it's going to get sorted. Do you know of any groups right now challenging this? Is this going to get challenged in the next 5 minutes?
I'll be working on something, and hopefully I'll have an announcement on that soon, because someone needs to stand up for this. And if it has to be me, I'm happy to do it, because think about it. They're willing to openly violate our First Amendment. And so we have to actually do something about this. And for so long, California's been able to do all these things. I mean, they're going after people's tires now, for instance, and nobody's standing up. So somebody has to stand up. So that's why we're going to be at the Sacramento Capitol on Wednesday at 11 a.m. And I hope all of your viewers come, because it's necessary. It's important for people to actually voice their opinions on stuff that actually makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you think it was bad before. They're going to have absolutely no accountability now. Sacramento, 11 a.m., you said?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a website or anything people can get directed to for that?
My social media.
Okay.
Just follow me on Instagram or X, and you'll get updated.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up your social media, because I wanted to get into your X account. You posted this hilarious meme showing exactly how stupid California politicians are. And it's like, I was looking at it, it does go down the line. It's like, there's no fraud. There might be some fraud. There is fraud, but we're on top of it. Actually, it's a crime for you to look into fraud in California.
Yeah, that's literally what happened. When I went and exposed all the locations, they're like, no, there's no fraud here. And then they say, oh, there might be some. Don't worry, but we're doing something about it. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And it's so funny, because when I exposed the hospice fraud, for instance, the Governor Newsom's like, no, there's no fraud. And then a few days later, he's trying to take credit for exposing the fraud. And then I exposed that a dog voted in the elections here in California. And people were like, well, it doesn't matter because it's a Republican. But that has nothing to do with it. It's the fact that a dog was able to vote.
Yeah, exactly. But that is the problem, too. You have this, people like this Mia Bonta, this state assembly member, all right, explaining that this is going to be really good to protect immigrants. It says, quote, it allows participants to use a substitute address designated by the Secretary of State, keeping their home, work, and school addresses out of public records while still allowing them to safely receive mail and legal documents through Look, I was on the town council in my hometown, so my address is basically public. I get mail and junk there all the time. Why should some illegal immigrant be more protected than me?
Exactly. Why do they care so much about illegal immigrants? These NGOs that they're trying to get me to not report on and not to be able to expose, one of them, the sponsor of this bill, received $80 million of our tax dollars that goes back into the legal services of illegal migrants.
That's insane. Where do people get
and
that?
Mia Bonta is also the Attorney General's wife.
Yeah, terrible. Where can I get a sweatshirt like that, by the way?
Antifraudclub.com.
I love
get
that.
One. They're pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Califraudi Republic.
Those things are pretty rad. All right, Nick, Shirley, keep up the great work, man. Screw everybody, all the haters.
Thank you very much.
All right. Coming up, immigrant-owned grocers say that Mamdani's socialist supermarket plan could put them out of business. So much for supporting the little guy. We're going to discuss that next.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
You're grounded.
You're gonna ground me? When you're 45 and you haven't even screened for colon cancer.
I'm busy. I promised your mother I'd fix the sink 3 years ago.
The Cologuard Plus test is non-invasive, with no prep.
And it detects 95% of colon cancers, similar to colonoscopy.
Now that's thinking inside the box.
False positive and negative results may occur. The Cologuard Plus test is not for those at high risk.
Cologuard. Have you ever thought of getting a walk-in tub for you or someone you love? Now is a great time to take a look at getting a Safe Step walk-in tub.
With Safe Step's standard heated seat and new fast fill faucet, you can enjoy a nice warm bath up to 20% faster. And the convenient touchpad control is right at your fingertips.
Each tub comes standard with a dual hydrotherapy system. The 10 water jets can help increase mobility, relieve pain, boost energy, and improve sleep, while the MicroSoothe advanced air therapy system oxygenates and softens skin.
Safe Step walk-in tubs are built to maximize safety so you can stay in your home and enjoy the comforts of bathing again.
So call now for more information and a free no-obligation consultation.
When you call today, you'll also receive our limited time offer. Don't wait to enjoy safer bathing. Call 1-800-296-0431.
Kibble. It's been the standard for decades, and it's failing our dogs. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete. It's gently air-dried, locking in the nutrients and the flavor dogs go wild for. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
My dad had never been in better shape. Then he had a stroke and passed away. But he had life insurance, so even after he was gone, he was still taking care of us. Ethos.com, 10 minutes, 100% online.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue. Rose Sparks. Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
America, worth defending, with a relentless warrior ethos. Our bravest stand tall on the shoulders of giants, securing peace through strength. Now is the time to earn your place in the fight.
Well, nothing says helping immigrant-owned businesses quite like opening taxpayer-funded grocery stores that could put those very businesses out of business. That's the fight brewing right here in New York City, where immigrant-owned grocery stores are now suing over Zoran Mamdani's plan for government-owned supermarkets that were intended to help the same migrants they're about to hurt. And Mamdani is doubling down, insisting his grocery store scheme is both legal and necessary.
I continue to be fully confident in both the legality and the importance of our initiative to deliver 5 city-run grocery stores, 1 in each borough, to the people of our city.
Yeah, well, let's test that theory. Communism, just communisming. Chairman of the Multicultural Business Coalition right here in New York, which filed a lawsuit, Frank Garcia, and President and CEO of the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce, Mark Jaffe, who's also legal counsel for the Multicultural Business Coalition. Frank, you guys, this is great. You guys filing the lawsuit. It's like the people that he said on the campaign trail, I'm going to help these people. He's literally putting them out of business.
He lied, and that's the hardest part of it. He's taking out the businesses that have been in that neighborhood for 40 years. My grandfather was head of the Bodega Association in the 1960s. He must be rolling in his grave, Nazario Garcia. And today, we went to visit one of the businesses that my grandfather helped start. Now he went to a Dominican business. Mm-hmm. We have Mexicans that were owned by Puerto Ricans, now by Mexicans. These mom and pop businesses are immigrant businesses. Mm-hmm. Well, he said he was going to help. he uses some of the chambers as props instead of really telling them the truth. He's going to put them out of business.
Right.
He's not going to use me as a prop. We're going to go after him. We're going to go after him hard. And we're not going to allow him to put our businesses out of business.
Well, we were just talking off air. I spend a ton of money at these food carts. There's a guy who sells fruit on 2nd Avenue. I buy fruit from him. Those are the guys that are going to go out of business. But they can't, without people like you, obviously as general counsel, you can't sue if you're just some little guy. You don't have the resources. This group, you guys are leading this charge.
Yes, and we are proud to protect the entrepreneur, the startup, and the American free enterprise system. Often those most overlooked are the smallest of businesses, and that's why the Multicultural Business Coalition and the Greater New York Chamber of Commerce that has members that are being affected by this will speak truth to power.
Mm-hmm. Well, but Frank, there's like some stuff going on here where you tried to talk to Mamdani, you were like, hey, don't do this, this is why. You guys didn't really hear much back, and you told him you were going to file the lawsuit today, which you did. If he didn't get back to you, did he even bother?
No, we sent a letter. For 2 months in the press, we've been saying we're going to sue. No one believed us because we wanted, because we want to be able to have him the opportunity to speak. This is not my first lawsuit. I sued Bloomberg twice because of the soda, and he admits it now. It was a bad policy. Right. And for the minority business, Hispanics would get 1% of the contracts. Now, all minorities get 35%. So to us, this is a mistake. We feel that his advisors are not giving him the right advice. And he wanted his lawyer to reach out. I don't want to talk to his lawyer. I want to talk to him.
100%. I mean, he's the decision maker. But this is not cheap. This is costing the city $30 million. Taxpayer funds. So the taxes that these bodegas and these small business owners are paying is then going into the slush fund of the city, which is then turning around and putting those own people who pay the taxes out of business.
It is a lot of money to spend to open one supermarket, $30 million. People in the business, our members have told us it shouldn't cost that much. Yeah. And we're not talking 10, 20% difference. It's a huge difference. And then...
What does it cost to open up a small grocery store or something?
The footprint that we're looking at, La Marqueta, should cost under $10 million.
The government's doing it for $30 million. What a deal.
It's called patronage.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Frank, real quick, you have these things going on. What are the likelihoods that you win something like this? And if you do win, does that stop his grocery stores dead in their tracks?
It will. And what we're going to do is also go after the operators. Whoever wins the bid, unfortunately, we're going to be going after that person too, legally. So we don't want this to happen. We want to sit down with him. We created a buying group to bring down the cost with the government of Colombia, who had a social government. Now they have real free elections. They have a real president that was willing to bring down the cost with us as a partner. With Secretary Rubio leading this charge, we could bring down the price for 50% if he just would sit down with us. He refused to do that. So we're going to go into a lawsuit, and we're going to go into a battle, and we're going to win. Yeah. Because what he did was illegal. He didn't do a disparity study. He didn't do an impact study. He went against the law. So now he's going to have to face the law.
Look, Frank, Mark, I appreciate you guys looking out for the little guy, because without you, we might not have grocery stores.
And we've done our homework, unlike some of the people that we're challenging.
Yeah, well, I hope so, and I appreciate you guys keeping these folks in business. All right, coming up, a former NBA player kicked out of a WNBA game for supporting the W, women. The liberals cannot keep their feet dry on this one. It's unbelievable. Culture Clash next.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched.
I switched to Newsmax.
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 Have you made the switch?
You bet I did. My whole family switched.
Millions are switching to Newsmax. You should too.
This is our time, His favorite route is the long way around. Now we can take it again. I'm not sure who loves this freedom more, him or me.
Being out here alone is my happy place. Nature can have its threats, but I'm prepared.
I'm not trying to fight wildlife. I just don't want one bad encounter deciding everything.
Carry confidence wherever you go with Byrna. And now it's the biggest sale ever at Byrna.com.
Celebrate low prices on flooring at Lumber Liquidators. Now through August 25th, we're dropping prices on hundreds of in-stock flooring in every store. Hurry in for epic deals on hundreds of varieties of luxury vinyl plank flooring, engineered hardwood, solid hardwood, laminate, and more, starting as low as 69 cents a square foot. But hurry and say hello to your new floor before the sale ends August 25th. Start shopping nationwide or online at lumberliquidators.com.
We wanted transparency, but we couldn't find it. So we started Good Ranchers to reconnect the American family to the American farm. All of our meat is 100% born, raised, and harvested right here on American soil. But good sourcing is just the beginning. We go the extra mile to take stuff off your plate. Pre-trimmed cuts, easy thaw bags, fully cooked options.
Ooh, yeah, this is good.
And it's good for you. No antibiotics, no added hormones, no seed oils, no gluten, no funny business.
Today's AI capabilities can make your head spin, but for scammers, it's the ultimate tool. They're using AI to exploit tech gaps and slip past traditional security. PCmatic keeps your information private and devices safe with online security solutions developed in America to protect Americans. Built for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Secure 5 devices for just $50 for your first year. Get online protection at PCmatic.com.
It's 2 a.m., your fever spiked and you're miserable. Here's your options.
Urgent care, closed. ER, slammed, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands in both. Telehealth, yeah, but the pharmacies are closed.
That's the reason why we keep emergency medical kits at home.
It has doctor-prescribed medication like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other antibiotics and antivirals. You can treat flu, pneumonia, strep, sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
Because if you're sick in at night, traveling or stranded, you don't want options.
You want what is inside this kit. No waiting, no pharmacy, and no copays.
Just schedule a quick telehealth call.
And that's how you feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
Every family should have this kit, and here's how to order yours.
Order online in minutes and use the promo code to save $45. Your doctor-prescribed kit ships fast to your door, packed with medications to treat over 30 conditions. So when something hits, you're ready. And a wellness company telehealth doctor is always there if you need guidance.
When Saturday rolls around, I don't want to jump through hoops to watch college football. Good thing DirecTV makes it easy to keep up with my favorite college teams. No hopping between apps or channels.
Stream college football without the hurdles on DirecTV.
Well, look, another socialist scammer in the books. One of the co-chairs of the New York City Democrat Socialists of America was being sued, and the person is seeking eviction. Now, Gustavo Gordillo is facing an eviction lawsuit after stiffing his landlord on 3 months of $2,500 of rent for a Crown Heights apartment. But court records show that he moved in there while his $1.5 million Brooklyn townhouse that was gifted to him by his wealthy father underwent some renovations. Tough life. So this kid just skipped payments. He paid like a little bit of a lump sum after falling behind, then he fell behind again. So that guy is railing against landlords and property ownership and people making returns on real estate, and he's refusing to pay rent. I know, weird, right? Host of Grace Curley Show, Grace Curley, and CEO of Compass Strategies, Luke Ball. Now, Grace, I couldn't imagine a socialist not paying his rent.
Yeah, this is so crazy. Every day there's a new story about these socialists. They're like chocolate heiresses and, union electricians. They're very interesting. And Gustavo especially, people should check out his background with the union electrician because the New York Post had a great story on that recently. But yeah, there's something about being a socialist that is just fundamentally, unless you're really walking the walk, which none of these people are, it's fundamentally hypocritical, and it's really hard to get away from that. I mean, this is like the gift that keeps on giving for the right, because these stories are almost too good to be true. They're too hypocritical and too on the nose, and it's really, I mean, it's going to be incredible to watch these races play out and see if the establishment Democrats either give up and say, okay, we're going to fund all of this and we're going to support it, or we might have to lose to Republicans in order to, at some point, get our house under control.
Well, and not lose. I'm talking like get completely destroyed. But Luke, we see these examples time and time again. Liberal policies, they get you, okay? Starbucks laying off 224 Seattle headquarters employees that are, they're also refusing to relocate these people to their new Nashville office as well. Maybe they've had too much with the social justice warfare. This is their 8th set of layoffs in 2 years, and at no point has Seattle or Washington or any of these areas that are overseeing this thought like, our policies suck. We should change them.
And there's a ridiculous amount of companies who would rather front load an enormous amount of benefits they can't pay for to virtual signal to the left-wing media and people who want to join the company who are also woke, and then try to make it quiet, not so much media attention, when they have to lay off people further down the line because their own front-loaded policies are the ones that doom the eventual employment of those individuals. It's just really sad. And one other thing, Carl, when I see Democrat socialists like the one that you just presented, or liberals at all who are saying they're entitled to this stuff, they're entitled to health care, entitled to this and that and rent, they generally somehow got a lot of money at the beginning of their life and feel like someone's always supposed to be there to continue feeding their money addiction.
Yeah, this is part of the reason why, reason 791 why I don't really care for Democrats, especially socialists and commies. All right, speaking of weak liberals, though, Grace, over the weekend, former NBA player Enes Kanter, Freedom is his last name now, was kicked out of a WNBA game between the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky while wearing a shirt with the definition of a woman on it, leading to an ugly exchange with the WNBA player Natasha Cloud. He obviously tweeted out, I got kicked out of a WNBA game for supporting women. Let that sink in, America. That's it.
Yeah, and he's getting kind of a mixed bag of response from conservatives. Some conservatives think that he's distracting from the issue. I would disagree with that, though, and say the only mockery that's happening here is a mockery is being made of women's sports. And sometimes the only way to point something out like that is to out-clown what's happening. And that's what he's trying to do, is say, yeah, this is ridiculous. And the reason it's ridiculous is because the WNBA can't state what a woman is and can't have, a guideline as to who's allowed in and who's not allowed in. And I give him credit for that. And one other thing I would note, Carl, is that player, according to Enes Kanter, said to him, she's not going to sleep with you, about Sophie Cunningham.
And he was like, yeah.
I mean,
whatever.
How sexist? But if I'm Sophie Cunningham, it's like, how sexist is that? You assume that this male is here to watch me just because he thinks I'm going to sleep with him, not because I'm one of the most talented female basketball players in the world right now. It's
all so stupid. All right, speaking of that, there's this they're introducing a non-binary turtle mascot. It's like this apparent swipe at Sophie Cunningham. They introduced this thing. Dez, it's a quote, and this is not me saying it, it's a Butch Borealis blue snapping turtle that uses she, they pronouns. Can we focus on at least hitting our foul shots first?
In their defense, that's exactly the type of mascot I imagined the WNBA having in the first place. So it is par for the course, but it is just so wholeheartedly ridiculous that they have parodied this in television shows and in comedy routines, and it's now becoming real life. It's almost like they can't even identify what animal it's supposed to be. At what point do you start to say it's half turtle, half fish, half mammal, something of that nature? So I just hope they continue down this ridiculous rabbit trail. The coverage of the ridiculousness around the WNBA must be 3 times higher than the actual games themselves.
And it's not good coverage either. This is bad press. Classic Democrat fashion here, Grace. Margaret Brennan downplaying the heavy hand of COVID vaccines to Dr. Oz. Roll it.
We already experienced what happened during COVID when we took away that right from parents. They were forced to give their kids COVID vaccines.
They were not forced to give their kids.
Well, they were pushed hard and oftentimes hindered from doing what they wanted to do, like going out socially, if their kids were not included in these programs. What we should, as a nation, no, of course, it's not up to the state. It's not up to the federal government. It's up to the states.
Yeah, and some people couldn't go to college without vaccines.
Yeah, some people lost their jobs. Some women who were pregnant were made to feel as though if they didn't get this vaccine that they were harming their unborn child. And now we're finding out that Dr. Fauci actually had concerns about it as far as miscarriages go. This is just so classic. This is how they ended up in this situation in the first place, downplaying and gaslighting Americans about their very valid concerns. And they're still living with their heads in the sand in this delusional world. The only difference is no one is buying it anymore. I mean, shame on her. And by the way, trying to say we didn't force people, and you
Yeah.
couldn't go into a Shake Shack and get a burger without your vaccine card, kind of feels
Yeah.
pretty forceful to me.
Yeah, they force people. Grace, Luke, pleasure as always.
Thanks, Carl.
All right, coming up, the data center debate has everyone back into their own corners. But what if I told you there's a solution that both sides could and should agree on? My thoughts next.
See you Sunday, Jim. Whoa! Delivery. Thanks, Kurt. You like that? See you Sunday, Jim.
Sunday.
See you Sunday. See you Sunday.
See you Sunday.
I just got my pilot's license. See you Sunday.
The whole town can feel it. Sunday's coming.
The NFL on CBS, streaming all season on Paramount+.
See you Sunday.
That's my boy Cam Skagoo.
Whoa!
My gutters were clogged, and I know that can be a big problem, so I called Leaf Filter.
Leaf Filter Pros will clean out, reinforce, and protect your gutters. Our surgical-grade stainless steel micro mesh keeps the debris out and water moving. Call or click today.
Honey, Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
I was tired of sitting on the sidelines. Now, thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
Really?
Really. Single Care crushes the cost of my prescription, almost as much as I'm crushing Chad.
Unbelievable. See why more people are saving with Single Care. Common side effects include shockingly lower prices, excessive fist bumps, and humbling guys named Chad.
My car insurance bill doubled?
You should try Insurify. In just a few clicks, you can compare rates from dozens of insurance companies. And you could...
I just got the same coverage for half the price.
Hey, that's what I was going to say. Go to Insurify.com and save up to $1,000 a year on your car insurance.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, and it's available at your local pet store.
Dale, you really need to get that colon cancer screening.
Yeah, it's been forever.
Dale, we can do it with just a blood test. Shield.
Shield is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk for colon cancer. Ask your doctor about FDA-approved Shield.
Ridge is back with our 6th annual sweepstakes. With prizes so epic, we needed a spokesperson to match.
These are pretty nice. You can win a Lamborghini, souped-up trucks, or $100,000 cash.
Enter to win for free at Ridge.
Wait, free?
Yeah.
I've been in the fitness industry for more than 25 years, and Fatty 15 is a built-in recovery system for your cells. You can't have a healthy outside if you're not taking care of the inside. Try Fatty 15.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Row Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at row.co/sparks.
Here we are again with this issue of data centers. And just to set the stage here, if we're going to compete technologically with our adversaries, we're going to need some space of huge data processing facilities. The issue is where they are putting them. Even Trump acknowledged it's all about the location.
The data center subject to me is a pretty simple one. If you pick the right location, and it's got to be, not every location is perfect for it.
So much so that the Senate Republicans, they put out an internal memo with concerns that, quote, support for data centers could cost them the election in Ohio and subsequent elections. The memo saying John Husted, Republican, and Sherrod Brown, Democrat, are in a dead heat. Private polling has them consistent, but when voter hears about Brown's record, Husted pulls away. That is still the path in this race. The new ingredient and the new problem is data centers. The memo went on, quote, Ohio is one of the leaders in building these AI factories. Brown has made his opposition to them the centerpiece of his campaign against Husted. Brown is using it because it works. More than any other thing in this race, data centers are the anchor hanging around Husted's neck. If he loses, it went on, if he loses and data centers get the blame, politicians across the country will take notice and they will go nowhere near the next one, being data centers. Brown, the Democrat, even spending big on ads about Husted's support, the Republican, for these data centers. Now, Trump and other Republicans touting the jobs they create. And they do during construction, not a ton after, but huge number of jobs for construction, which is why many unions are supporting them, because the trades are gainfully employed during the construction of them. This is a messy issue, though. You've got some Republicans aligning with labor unions, okay? Others lining up with environmental groups. Democrats suddenly caring, fraudulently, I believe, but they are running on looking out for the little communities, even though their tax policies have just absolutely destroyed small communities for the last 20 years. Meanwhile, Democrats are supported almost exclusively by the tech industry in places like Meta and Google and others that use these data centers, and then the Democrats are turning around and campaigning against them while they probably use AI on their campaign. It's all backwards, folks. Look, the issue is not data centers themselves. The issue is where they are putting them, and that's why 70% of Americans are opposing them right now. These smaller communities are seeing energy prices increase, which is why Donald Trump recently told data centers, hey guys, you got to provide your own power.
The data centers now are mandated by me that they build their own electricity, so they're not taking it from the grid.
I mean, that is a completely logical conclusion to what this is happening here. Now, these communities are also seeing some of their wells run dry from the water that it takes to cool these data centers. Communities are seeing their countryside transformed into like 40-acre windowless buildings. That's what's making them unpopular, not the data centers themselves. We need these things. But I have a plan that I think will solve this problem. Just stop putting them in like the beautiful countryside. Since we're talking about Ohio, Akron has some of the largest abandoned warehouses in the country, one of which is the former Firestone Tire Factory. Look at the size of that thing. The Fisher Body Plant in Michigan, the Westinghouse Electric Complex. It's a complex in Pennsylvania. The Remington Arms Factory, which is sad that left my home state of Connecticut. The Bethlehem Steel Plant in New York. These are all like ready to be converted. Just convert these into data centers. You're not ruining anyone's farmland. A lot of the infrastructure is already in place. Most of these buildings are still structurally sound. These used to be manufacturing monsters. They become run down because some of the cases where these things closed down, like a quarter of the city picked up and left. This is like a no friction path to nearly all these data centers. Look, by the way, we need these. There's over 10,000 large abandoned factories in cities nationwide. It also, and here's a noble concept, puts the data closer to the large communities that are using more of it. If Democrats, like I say this all the time, if Democrats oppose this, well, they can go throw their iPhone in the ocean. But you know what? Everybody uses this. This stuff we use all the time. So we need to process this data, or we're not going to compete with China, and they will eventually out-innovate us, and they will outperform us on every metric, and then we won't be able to go toe-to-toe with them anymore. We need these things. We just got to put them in the places that they should be and not clear-cutting, the countryside of some beautiful area. All right, before we go, neither snow nor rain nor heat can stop postal carriers from delivering the mail, but federal charges actually can. I'll explain next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
Car trouble never gives you a heads up. It just happens. And with today's repair costs skyrocketing, getting caught off guard can burn through all your money. That's why having My Auto Guard coverage matters. Without coverage, auto repairs cost Americans an average of $6,000 to $7,000. And let's face it, it's not if you'll need repairs, it's when. A My Auto Guard auto protection plan covers any make or model. Car, truck, SUV, even electric vehicles, saving you thousands.
My Auto Guard paid my mechanic $4,800 to fix the engine. Thank you, My Auto Guard.
Just call now or go to myautogard.com. One transmission job could cost over $6,000. A new engine could cost over $7,000. But you won't have to pay that when you're protected with My Auto Guard. Now more than ever, you can't afford to be driving without My Auto Guard. Because with My Auto Guard, you don't pay for costly repairs on your car, truck, or SUV. My Auto Guard pays. You can put that money back in your pocket. You even choose the repair shop or dealership. Then My Auto Guard pays them directly, so you don't wait to be reimbursed. Remember, you must get My Auto Guard before a repair is needed.
My Auto Guard paid for my brake repair fast. Thank you, My Auto Guard.
Call the number on your screen right now for a free quote. There's no obligation to find out how low your monthly payments can be. My Auto Guard customer service reps, coverage specialists, and claims adjusters are all under one roof right here in America to ensure you always get top quality service from a caring company that stands behind everything they do. Call My Auto Guard now and let them pay for your auto repairs. Act now and get free 24/7 roadside assistance, help with oil changes and tire rotation, plus rental car options to get you back on the road. So don't wait. Call right now.
Call 1-800-218-2031. That's 1-800-218-2031 or visit myautogard.com right now.
This is our time, you know? His favorite route is the long way around. Now we can take it again. I'm not sure who loves this freedom more, him or me.
Being out here alone is my happy place. Nature can have its threats, but I'm prepared.
I'm not trying to fight wildlife. I just don't want one bad encounter deciding everything.
Carry confidence wherever you go with Byrna. And now it's the biggest sale ever at Byrna.com.
Some wireless companies say that they stand for something. What exactly do they stand for, and why won't they say it out loud? Let me tell you what Patriot Mobile stands for. They stand for the lives of the unborn. They stand for the Second Amendment and the right to protect yourself and your family. They stand for our veterans and first responders who sacrifice so much for our freedom. Make the switch to Patriot Mobile today and support a company that doesn't just say they stand for something, but one that stands for the things that matter the most.
You know, when I came in here, I was at a 15, and that's no joke. My spinal cord was almost severed. I feel like I'm gaining my freedom. My pain level of the day is nothing.
No pain now? No. Okay, feels good? Yep.
And I can feel my legs waking up and getting feeling back in my leg and my foot I haven't had in a year and a half, 2 years. I feel like I'm getting my life back.
Bonatti succeeds where others fail.
Before I tell you this next story, I just want to remind you that these are the people in charge of delivering your ballots, okay? The United States Postal Service carriers are among 5 people federally charged in an independent check-stealing scheme. And it's not just a few $1,000s. No, these alleged scheme generators, they had $24 million that they stole from October 2023 to September 2024. The suspects, allegedly, were recruited to steal checks from the mail and then sell them to buyers via the encrypted messaging app Telegram. Again, these people are responsible for delivering our mail-in ballots. Is it far-fetched to think that, like, the postal carriers whose unions have endorsed Democrats like Joe Biden in 2020 would forget to deliver your ballot if you had a Republican sign in your yard? I mean, it's a logical conclusion. Yet here we are, a little more than 2 months away from the midterms, and the Save America Act is collecting dust somewhere because John Thune is rewinding videotapes and refusing to pass it. Thankfully, though, the Supreme Court, as we told you, on the president's mail-in ballot executive order said, good to go. Rob, this could actually change the field of the midterms because now they get to verify whether or not you're a real person and not a dog registered to a porta-john.
I suspect they're not going to be able to implement it in time for this midterms. But is that what happened to my $1 million check?
Oh, you didn't get that?
I didn't get my $1 million check.
I'll send
I was
another
waiting
one.
for that.
Yeah.
Send that again.
I got you.
I'd appreciate that call. Thanks so much. Arms looking better, too. Arms
Less
looking
bad,
good.
less bad.
All right, less bad.
Information.
Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.